So, you want to know why this region is called the Field of Blood? The old man peered over in astonishment from his seat in the shadow of his stone hut. He smiled mischievously as he continued. You're probably not from here. If you were, you would not have asked such a question. I nodded in affirmation, for the old man was right. I was a merchant from the south. It is the first time that my path has led to Cusco, the heart of the Inca Empire, I explained. You are fortunate that you have chosen to rest in my village, my young and illiterate friend, the old man told me, rising and pointing to the entrance of his dwelling. You must know that I am the most renowned storyteller in the entire valley. If there is anyone in the world who can explain why the plain that surrounds us has that ominous name, it is I, he said, gesturing to me to enter his house. Today, all inhabitants of this region are full of admiration for our empire, he boasted. But everything that is now subject to the Inca had to be conquered. Who knows? If not for Viracocha Inca, we all might still be simple farmers like I am. During the years before his reign, many nearby tribes were periodically conquered, but no garrisons or Inca officials were placed among them. This pattern of raiding and plundering changed during the reign of Viracocha. He would establish permanent rule over the neighboring tribes. Viracocha was convinced that he was favored by the gods, the old man continued in a tone that suddenly seemed scornful. But in truth, he owed his victories to his two generals, Bicaquirao and Apomaita. They were the strategists behind the military tactics that made the conquest of the Cusco Valley possible in the first place. Viracocha was too conceited to realize that, and his pride following their hard-fought triumph nearly led the Inca to ruin. When the old man had begun his story, the hut had been flooded by sunlight. The golden disk had long since sunk below the horizon, and the light of the embers dancing around in the darkness only faintly illuminated his wrinkled face. He refilled his clay mug, and then continued the story. Viracocha believed that his reign was sacred, and that he was protected by divine providence. However, the gods had turned away from him towards a new favorite, a wild young warlord named Anku Hualak. He hailed from the Chanca tribes, and had recruited more than 40,000 warriors, with whom he marched on Cusco. The inhabitants were sure that their beloved ruler would remain strong and drive out the invaders. Sadly, Viracocha had grown old, and fear had infected his heart. Together with Urku, his favorite son, he fled, abandoning his people to their fate. Not all of Viracocha's sons were as cowardly as their father. Cusi Yupanqui refused to follow his aged father, and instead took command of the defense. Full of confidence, he announced that he would defeat the Chanca army. However, the few soldiers remaining in the city could not be impressed by bold words, as Cusi Yupanqui had no military experience to justify his claim. Luckily, Bicaquirao and Apomaita had also remained in Cusco. I was captivated by the words of the old man. When he had finished, I exclaimed, "So that is why this area is called Yahuapampa, the Field of Blood." His eyes sparkled. Yes, the ground on which my hut stands today was watered by the blood of the Chanca. Cusi Yupanqui, with the help of his generals, had accomplished the impossible. Cusco had been saved from an overwhelmingly superior force. The name of Cusi Yupanqui soon fell into oblivion, but only because the people that he had saved from the Chanca invasion began to call their savior Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, he who overturned space and time. Now, there were also those who wished immediately to rid themselves of the victorious hero. His own family, driven by jealousy, began to conspire against him. 'It 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 The moon had risen, but sleep was far from my mind. I hung on the words of the old man who did not seem the least bit tired. It was as if the more he talked about Pachacuti, the livelier he became. I told you about the great battle of Cusco, he continued, but you must know that this glorious victory did not bring peace to the Inca. On the contrary, a civil war broke out. For the success of his son filled Pachacuti's father with envy. Viracocha still wished for his son Urcu to become king of the Inca, although everyone could see that Pachacuti was far more capable. After all, it was he who defended Cusco, the holy city, while Urcu had fled into the mountains along with Viracocha. Although Viracocha had grown old and died a bitter man shortly thereafter, Urcu did not intend to yield. He entrenched himself in Calas, a mountain fortress, and proclaimed himself Sapa Inca, supreme ruler. Of course, the thought of coming to terms with his treacherous brother did not once cross Pachacuti's mind. Gathering his warriors, he led them to Calas to eliminate Urcu once and for all. The old man sneered as he described the end of Urcu, who was slain in battle. For the Inca, the end of Urcu was a blessing, he told me, for it left Pachacuti the undisputed ruler, and it showed that he was not only a valiant warlord, but also a prudent king. Having refurnished the Temple of the Sun, he turned to rebuilding the entire city of Cusco. He also built fortresses, palaces, roads, and temples throughout the country. In addition, he issued wise decrees beyond count and led his kingdom into a golden age. I still believe that the people were right to hail Pachacuti as Son of the Sun, for he had once again led the Incas out of the darkness. The stories of Pachacuti and his followers fascinated me, so it filled me with joy when my host laid down his mug and continued. Clearly, his story was far from over. Pachacuti knew that the Inca would never live in peace if their greatest rivals, the Chanca, remained powerful. In any case, he had a score to settle with Ancuhualac, who had nearly succeeded in conquering Cusco. Pachacuti sent his troops north to occupy Huamancarpa, the Falcon's tent, capital of the Chanca. Once again, he tasked Vicaquirao and Apomaita, who remained at his side during the Civil War with the command of the army. Fueled by panic, the Chanca began to organize their defense, for it was now their turn to be hunted. The winds had shifted. At that time, it was common for Chanca warriors to intimidate their enemies by using cups fashioned from the skulls of prisoners to drink the blood of the slain. Even so, when the victorious Inca troops entered Huamancarpa, the remaining defenders had no choice but to surrender. Everyone thought that Pachacuti would take bloody revenge on the Chanca, the old man explained, but Pachacuti instead chose mercy and integrated the surviving warriors of the Chanca into his army. Astonishingly enough, they became loyal followers and acknowledged the Inca king as their new overlord. The domain of the Inca was now greater than ever. Pachacuti's superiority had become too overwhelming and his armies too effective, leaving no tribes who could contend with the Inca except for the kingdom of Timor, which was located near the coast to the west. You are still quite young, my friend, the old man observed, smiling amicably. But look at me. At some point, your hair will turn gray just like mine, and your hands will become wrinkled as well. A king will also grow old one day, even if he is the son of the sun. Pachacuti knew that he needed a capable successor to sustain the state that he had built. There was only one man who could be considered, his own son, Topa Yupanqui. Topa Yupanqui seemed to have inherited his father's military skills. He already bore the title Apu Quispai, leader of the imperial troops, To test his mettle, Pachacuti gave his son the command of the campaign against the Timor Empire. The Chimu were not to be underestimated. On the coast, they had built a magnificent city called Changchang, whose splendor rivaled that of Cusco itself. Massive canal systems fed the city with fresh water, and magnificent pyramids adorned the city. Timor was quite wealthy due to the droves of slaves harvesting gold from the abundant sources nearby. The discipline of its military was the stuff of legend. The people of Cusco anxiously awaited the outcome of the campaign against the remote coastal kingdom. Would Topa Yupanqui succeed in completing the work of his father and bring the expansion of the Inca to a dignified conclusion? The old man was silent for some time, but then addressed me. You have surely heard of the Tawantinsuyu, the realm of the four parts. That is what we call our empire, since Topa Yupanqui succeeded in subjugating the Chimu. The lands to the north, south, east, and west had finally been conquered, and the Inca now dominated the entire region, mountain and valley. Knowing that his son was of equal wisdom and virtue, Pachacuti could die without regret. Now, you know the entire story. The story of the Inca. I hesitated for a moment before asking the old man, "You have told me much indeed, but what was the fate of the two generals, Bicaquirao and Apomaita? Surely their story does not end there." The old man beamed at me and laughed before giving his answer. Well, Bicaquirao gave his life in battle and died the most honorable death imaginable. Apomaita was not quite as favored by fortune, however. It is said that having grown older than the hills themselves, he now lives a life of solitude in a stone hut. From time to time, you might find him telling inquisitive travelers tales of bygone times that are so fantastic that they seem almost difficult to believe.